And your experience at Yale playing Div 1 ball, is that anything you thought it would be, or did anything take you by surprise?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good experience for me, both athletically and academically. It was very challenging. I double majored in economics and political science there while also playing football. So my days were jam-packed from morning until night. And I literally went by a weekly schedule when it was the same thing every single week. And I had to maintain a lot of discipline and determination in order to get through that.
Welcome back to another episode of Georgeonsports with me, your host. And on today's show, we have Chicago Bears offensive lineman Dieter Eiselen. Dieter, thank you for joining the show, and how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it a lot.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've been wanting to speak to you for a while. You know, we've been communicating for some time, trying to get this sorted, and I'm really glad to have you on the show.
Yeah.
I want to get straight into it, and I want to ask you about being born and raised in South Africa. Predominantly, the NFL is full of American players. We know that. Mm-hmm. But you do have guys who make it from across the pond, from London, Germany, and in yourself, in your case, South Africa. But your sporting career never started with American football. Your sporting career started out with rugby, you know, the popular Springboks over there. Everybody knows about the Springboks. Talk to me about how that came about in terms of rugby.
Yeah, I mean, obviously growing up in South Africa, American football is not really a big thing at all. Everybody grows up rugby mad, and I was one of those kids too who wanted to be a Springbok one day. But I really just fell in love with the sport of football when I was 16 years old, and I would avidly watch games, download it on a week-by-week basis, and then after a few years of just watching it, I just decided to pursue it. So, and my football journey has led me all the way from South Africa to the NFL. So.
It has. I'm glad you said that because you've pretty much described the title of this episode, from South Africa to the NFL. So I'm glad you said that. But in between that, you also did a bit of Olympic weightlifting too. That's correct, right?
Yeah. So I played rugby, and then I did Olympic weightlifting. I competed in Olympic weightlifting, and then I transitioned over to football. So I definitely credit both of those sports for preparing me for football. But yeah, I've just finished my 8th year of football, and I look forward to just playing it for how many years more, so hopefully many. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned the fact that you played both rugby and obviously you competed in weightlifting in the Olympics. Now, obviously those two things, like you mentioned, have helped you get to where you are today in the NFL, which isn't an easy thing to do, by the way. What led you to chase that dream of football, though? I know you mentioned earlier about watching the games. Was there a specific moment that sort of captured you in your mind and thought to yourself, actually, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So it was probably close to the time when I was getting close to matriculating high school here, and there was nothing that really enticed me to study at any of the university programs back home, nothing that I really aspire to be in my future. So I decided to take a chance on football, and I attended a camp during my last year of high school, and that was kind of like my first exposure to the game of football. And that trip motivated me to find some avenue to get recruited to play football. So I did a lot of due diligence, and then I found a way to do a postgraduate year at one of these prep schools in New England. And I essentially emailed like 50 coaches, telling them what my aspirations are, and how big I am and how I can move and all that. And I was lucky to get into one of these schools and get recruited from there. So that's kind of how I made the jump from here to the U.S.
So in terms of ball, some people would say you were a latecomer, but putting that to the side, it seems like you went all hammer and nail in terms of your approach, messaging people, messaging coaches, letting them know what you can do. And sometimes I think some people kind of forget that does work. You know, if you don't jump off the board in terms of video footage and things like that, or if you haven't played from Pee-wee, sometimes it can be a bit difficult. But I think just like your approach of being outside the box and just going straight to the source, hey, look, this is what I can do. You should give me a chance. Yeah. And on that note, you went from, I believe it's Choate Rosemary, before attending Yale to play Div 1 football. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great year for me just to learn the game of football and learn the mechanics a little bit. I just try to soak in as much as I can and expand my football knowledge, because obviously watching the game and playing it is two very different things. But I'm a fast learner and I can adapt quickly. And I was lucky to get recruited to play at Yale from that year. So I really credit the coaches that I had at the prep school. Coach Spinato was my coach that I had there. And we won all 10 games that year, which was great. So I really, really liked the school a lot. And obviously it got me to where I am today.
And your experience at Yale playing Div 1 ball, is that anything you thought it would be, or did anything take you by surprise?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good experience for me, both athletically and academically. It was very challenging. I double majored in economics and political science there while also playing football. So my days were jam-packed from morning until night. And I literally went by a weekly schedule, and it was the same thing every single week. And I had to maintain a lot of discipline and determination in order to get through that. But it was a great experience for me to play Division I football, obviously coming from where I was. And I was lucky to, again, have great coaches that helped mentor me and turn me into the player that I was. Because my year at Choate, I actually played defensive line, and then I made the switch to offensive line my first year of college. And I had a great coach, Coach Joe Conlon, who really mentored me and took me under his wing, and I learned really quickly. And I starting from the fourth game of my freshman year and started for the rest of my time at Yale because of him. So,
wow, that's pretty impressive. Something I want to talk to you about. You mentioned what you were studying. You double majored whilst you were playing football. Now, on this side of the water, being in the UK, we hear a lot about playing football across the pond in college, in the NFL. And one of the things that they promote strongly in college is obviously getting those grades, even in high school too, getting those grades and being able to play. What is that like? What is the, how much of it is made accountable to you in terms of, if you don't get these grades, we won't put you on the field? Because, you know, we hear about it so much over here in terms of wanting to have you be good at football, but also want you to have your grades. Just in case, you know, people talk about the fail safe. If football doesn't work out, then what will be next? So whilst you were studying and playing football, what kind of emphasis was put on you in terms of achieving your grades and playing football? And if you weren't achieving your grades, were the repercussions for the football side?
Yeah, obviously each school is different. The Ivy League is a little different in terms of its academic requirements. But yeah, I mean, just for myself personally, I really try to just take full advantage of the opportunity that was presented to me. You know, I just wanted to get obviously a great Yale degree, and I got it in 2 majors, and I obviously wanted to get the best grades that I could. So I really pushed myself. Like, I didn't have to double major or anything, but I made the decision to, even though it was hard at the time, to do all the things that were necessary to meet the fulfillments for both majors. But yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot. I mean, obviously you get guys who go to like other schools across the country, schools that don't really put as much of an emphasis on academics. And, you know, again, that's why schools are different, you know, from schools like in the South and the SEC. Like, I don't know how much emphasis they put on academics versus in the Ivy League. But yeah, I really put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed, and was able to do that through just determination and discipline.
I think it speaks volumes to the type of character that you are. And before we move on to the NFL, it's a first and foremost, congratulations. Obviously, you've been re-signed by the Bears, so that's great news for you.
Thank you.
But take me back to when you're welcome. Tell me back to when you were signed by the Bears. Can you recall what that felt like and how you felt emotionally at the time?
Yeah, I mean, draft day, just the whole lead up to the draft process, it was hard just because I was training for my pro day at a facility in New Jersey, and then COVID happened in March of 2020 and everything got shut down. So all the training that I did up until that point, like, I didn't ever have an opportunity to have like a pro day and like put on display my athleticism for all the NFL scouts, as would be the case in a normal year. So there's a lot of uncertainty going into that. And I was communicating with a lot of teams, but it was a stressful day for me, like teams saying like, oh, we're going to draft you here, draft you there, blah, blah, blah. And then I ended up being an undrafted free agent. But I had the opportunity given to me to get signed by the Chicago Bears right after the draft, which I was very excited about. I never thought that me, in 2014 when I came over, I was just trying to play in university. I never had the NFL even in my head. So the fact that I was able to get to that point and just finish my third year and now get re-signed for a fourth. I don't think that if you told 16-year-old me that I would be here, that he would believe you. But yeah, I'm just going to keep on going and not stop.
On that little segue there about, 2014 you and where you are now. So born and raised in South Africa, playing in the NFL. What does that feel like? I mean, you have people who are back home in South Africa who are looking up to you, who possibly want to do what you've done. They're looking to find ways into the sport, and they've seen that you've made it from where they were to where you are now. Obviously, you wear the South African flag on your helmet as well, and we have periods in the NFL where we promote and raise awareness about people coming from different parts of the world. Talk about what that feels like, being able to represent South Africa all the way in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it feels really great being able to represent my country. There's only been a handful of guys who've ever made it into the NFL from South Africa as a whole. So I'm really, really happy to be one of them. And hopefully I can be the example that everybody looks up to into the future. I really want to be a trailblazer, and hopefully I can be somebody who can help establish the sport here, because obviously it's hard. It's so ingrained in American culture, and it's not really prevalent in cultures across the world. But hopefully we can get to the point where we have people playing it in high school, we have clubs, we have people actually getting recruited and getting opportunities. So that's really my hope, not just for me to have a good career personally, but to inspire others to hopefully take the chance, because there's so many great opportunities that are afforded kids all across, great universities. You can get a great degree, and maybe even guys who are good enough to make it to the NFL can get discovered by teams and make it to that level.
Absolutely. Now, on the talk of the Chicago Bears, obviously you guys have been the talk of the town right now for multiple reasons, starting with trading out of the number one pick. Obviously, you have your guy in Justin Fields, and you trade with the Panthers. And in return, you acquire someone like DJ Moore, who's a hell of a talent, I have to say. Yeah. And pairing him with someone like Justin Fields is going to be fireworks. But not only that, the number 9 pick, 61st pick, a first round pick in 2024, and a second round pick in 2025. We've also made some off-season moves as well, bringing in linebacker Edmonds from the Bills, running back Travis Homer from the Seattle Seahawks, a guard Nate Davis, who I guess will be one of your close friends by the time you guys play together on the O-line from the Titans, and another guy in defensive end DeMarcus Walker from the Titans too. So having said that, and knowing what you guys can do with the weapons that you have, how much are you looking forward to next season?
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I just want to be part of a winning team. I think that our team has a lot of promise and potential, but you have to be able to capitalize on that potential, and that translates into winning games. I'd love to be part of something that is the start of a winning culture that can hopefully be established within not just the NFC North, but the NFC as a whole, because we have the potential to do lots of great things within the NFL. So that's really my hope. And I'm really excited for all the guys that we're acquiring. And hopefully it's the dawn of a new age for Chicago Bears. And hopefully we can get back to where we were in 1985 and 2006. So
I like the throwback there. There's no doubt. I mean, I'm a big believer. I do think you guys can get some good stuff done. Talk to me about NFL Water Boys.
Yeah,
in terms of the charity that you work with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great foundation that Chris Long started, where they bring water to communities who don't have it, not just within Africa, but also in the Americas. And I just think it's a great initiative, bringing water pumps to places where something that is essential as water is not even available, where poorer African communities, you have people lugging around big drums of water every day just in order to survive, So it's a great charity, and I'm really happy to be part of it, as somebody who is from Africa originally. So I look forward to, hopefully once my career is over, to also form part of their thing that they do every year, where they go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro in order to raise funds for charity. So I look forward to doing that once my playing days are over, not when I'm weighing 315 pounds.
On the talk of Africa, we have NFL Africa, which is kind of newly launched in terms of social media. OC Umenyiora, two-time Super Bowl winner for the New York Giants, sort of heads it up.
Yeah.
And clearly you can see what their mission is to bring some awareness to the continent of Africa and bring over the thousands of sleeping giant athletes, which I'm sure you more than know, who walk around all of Africa, who don't have the opportunities to showcase what they can do and hopefully get them in the NFL. And we've seen it happen before, and it seems to be going that way again. But you mentioned at the start of the show that South Africa, there weren't a lot of people who go from South Africa to the NFL. And I'm wondering, obviously, what the type of access to American football is like in South Africa. I mean, you've gone to the NFL, you've lived the life, you play the game, you're embedded in the culture. When you go back to South Africa, like where you are now, have you seen a development in terms of access to the sport, or is it something that maybe you would hope to get involved in post-career?
It's possibly something that I want to get involved in even now and also post my career. It's very limited right now. Everybody here they're rugby mad, you know what I mean? So people don't really have a conception of what American football is, or, people only know the Super Bowl and nothing more, you know what I mean? And it's a shame because there are a lot of rugby players and other athletes as well who I believe would make great football players, but just because the sport isn't here, they don't have access to it, so I'm really hoping that one day we can bring more South African athletes over to play football to get those guys into great colleges and earn great degrees and hopefully discover the next guy who can make it to the NFL.
Absolutely. And if you're to look back at your playing career to date, be it with Yale or currently with the Bears, is there anybody in particular that you have leaned on or has assisted you or guided you through this process? Someone that you look up to? You mentioned some coaches at the start, but are there any players that you have shown you the way, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, you try to learn from all the guys in the NFL. You try to take a little piece of what they do, and then if it's useful to you, you put it to your game. Not just in the way that they play, but in the way that they prepare mentally and physically, and not just in the season itself, but also many months prior, so I just love to learn from guys who have done it for a long time successfully, so this past year we had a great veteran, Riley Reef, who has played for the Lions, the Vikings, and this past year for us, former first-round draft pick, but 11-year NFL veteran, He's just a great guy, the epitome of somebody who just works hard and does so humbly, just does everything the right way. And that's something that I try to emulate and continually will try to emulate throughout my career. So he's definitely somebody that I'm really fortunate for having met, but you just try to learn from people who you try to be like, you know what I mean? And he's definitely a great example of somebody who's like that.
If you were to pick a highlight of your career to date, or a pivotal point or a defining moment in your career, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, just being suited up a lot this past year and playing in actual games. I've been a reserve for the majority of my career, but this past year when I got to play against Dallas at AT&T Stadium, we lost the game, but just being able to play in that environment and have my first live snaps this past year was great and something that I'll never forget, And I want to work to where I am starting and playing in every single game and, proving what I can do week in and week out. So, but just getting that first taste of live action is something that I've worked for a long time. And again, something that 16-year-old me would have never believed.
Absolutely. And to round things off before I let you go, what does a typical NFL game day look like for you? So from the time you wake up to making your way to the stadium to then being at the stadium, let's say Chicago Bears home field, for example, what does that look like for you? Yeah,
so it's very different depending on whether it's a home or away game. It's super easy if it's a home game. Our facility is up north in Lake Forest, which is 45 minutes of where the stadium is in Chicago, the city itself. So we would sleep at the hotel that's very close to where the stadium is. And we'd have our night meetings prior, go to bed early, wake up early in the morning. I like to get there early just to mentally prepare for everything. We just grab breakfast and then just go through my game day routine. You know, I get there around 8:30 or so, and then the games are usually at noon Central Time. But yeah, just get there early, you know, go in the hot tub, do some stretching, go out on the field, check what the field conditions are like to see what kind of cleat you want to wear for that day, and then just get ready for the game, you know. That's the best part of my whole week, is being able to suit up for game day and hear the national anthem, get those chills, and then get ready to go play in the game. So yeah, that's what a typical game day is like. And then obviously when we're away, it's a little bit more travel and more meetings and all that. And it's kind of dependent on how far away our travel is too. That will shape what the schedule looks like, but it's pretty identical on the game day itself.
Dieter, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I always find it's really helpful when I get to speak to someone who's actually active playing the game, because, you know, it's different watching the game and then speaking to someone who's actively involved. You get the presence of what it actually feels like to be an NFL player, and this opportunity doesn't come up too often. So I do thank you for coming on the show. Guys, people watching and listening, I hope you enjoyed that one. I think this is my first with anybody from South Africa on the show. So there we go. You're breaking records there. But no, it's been great. It's been great. Again, thank you for coming on the show. And I hope the viewers have enjoyed this one. And, you know, we've got a great season coming up. I think the Bears are going to do some good things. Made some good off-season moves. This is just a start. But until then, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. I've been George from Georgeonsports with Dieter Eiselen, offensive lineman of the Chicago Bears, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it.